Introduction. The Fire. History operates behind our backs. Stephen Eric Bronner. June 1996, and the United States was on edge. A year after Timothy McVeigh had bombed the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City, the country watched anxiously as a standoff between the FBI and a militia group unfolded in Jordan, Montana. The Montana Freemen had declared themselves a sovereign township outside the reach of U.S. law, had stopped paying taxes, and had embarked on a massive scheme of counterfeiting and bank fraud. When the FBI attempted to arrest them in March, they grabbed their weapons, and the feds, eager to avoid the bloodshed that ended similar standoffs at Ruby Ridge, Idaho, and Waco, Texas, settled in for a long siege. During the second month, news broke that another Montanan, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, had been caught and charged with a series of bombings he'd carried out over the course of 17 years. Then, on June 14th, the same day that the last of the Montana Freemen surrendered peacefully to authorities, police in Long Island, New York, arrested yet another group of dangerous men, revealing a plot far stranger than anything the country had yet seen. Martin Thompson, the head of rackets for the Suffolk County's District Attorney's Office, had been leading an investigation into illegal gun sales when he first learned of the plan. Listening to a wiretap of two suspects, John J. Ford and Joe Mazzucchelli, he suddenly found them talking about something very different than guns. "Once they find this stuff on, let's say in Tony's car, front seat," Ford is heard saying on the tape, only to be cut off by Mazzucchelli, who chimes in, "Nasty bastard glowing in the dark." Ford adds, "With this isotope, he'll start glowing in 24 hours. Thompson and his team had stumbled on a deeply bizarre assassination plot, one involving stolen radium, a forest fire, and a UFO cover-up. In addition to stockpiling a large cache of weapons, John J. Ford was the president of the Long Island branch of the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON, a collection of UFO enthusiasts who investigated sightings in an attempt to finally prove that extraterrestrials existed and had visited Earth. MUFON members are not, by nature, violent. Most see their job as simply gathering evidence, as objectively and dispassionately as possible, in hopes that eventually there'll be a documented, undeniable sighting of some kind. But Ford was not like the typical UFO researcher. He claimed he had been recruited by the CIA when he was 18 and had routinely participated in clandestine operations against the Soviet Union. The KGB, he claimed, had tried and failed 5 times to kill him, and they'd given him the nickname the Fox due to his wily nature. But by the mid-1990s, things had taken a turn for Ford. He injured himself on the job and had to retire, and his mother died, an event that, friends said, affected him deeply. And then there was the forest fire. The blaze that swept through Long Island's Pine Barrens in 1995 was large enough that the smoke was visible from Manhattan, some 75 miles away, ultimately scorching 7,000 acres. Over time, Ford became convinced that the fire was, in fact, caused by a UFO crash, and that the Suffolk County Board was involved in a large-scale cover-up. He felt that the only way to get answers was by taking control of the government himself, and he began conspiring with Mazzucchelli and another man, Edward Szabo, to kill 3 county officials using stolen radium. Szabo, deeply in debt, agreed to provide the radium that Mazzucchelli, himself an ex-con, would plant in the men's homes. At a press conference the day of the arrest, Suffolk County District Attorney James M. Catterson stood before Ford's extensive collection of weapons spread out before the podium and explained that when he'd first heard of the plot, the idea that someone would attempt to introduce radioactive material into someone's food or someone's living area at first seemed so bizarre that there's a human tendency to discount it. It didn't take very long to realize that this was some of our worst nightmares come true.